All right, so you're moving to Portland from out of state. Well, you better have a game plan. And in this video, that's exactly what we're going to give you. So stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Paul Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from Portland, Oregon. If this is your first time to the channel living in Oregon, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. People reach out to us all the time who are relocating to the Portland area, moving here. We love to help with that process as real estate professionals. And so if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link below down in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to Portland. All right, so for years, Portland and Oregon as a state has been a place where people are flocking to from all over the country and all over the world for a number of reasons. I mean, it's a beautiful state, obviously. There's a lot of things to do outdoors. There's a lot of different landscapes. There's different climates even. You get high desert, you get valley, you get a coastal area, and everything in between. So there's a lot of appeal when it comes to the natural beauty, but the Oregon job market and Oregon's economy has been growing quite a bit in the last couple of decades, primarily fueled by the tech industry. Historically, that's been a little bit more with like semiconductors and hardware, making chips. Intel has obviously been the biggest driver for that. But, you know, especially over the last 10, 15, 20 years, software has grown a ton. And actually, there's more jobs for software companies in Portland than there are in the hardware space. So overall, tech has been the largest export from Oregon. I think there's like 110,000 jobs in the tech industry with an average salary of $140,000. So, you know, these are very well-paying jobs. These create a lot of opportunity for people. And in the context of relocating here, you know, a lot of people are escaping where they live. You know, maybe they're moving from California. It's too expensive. They're tired of whatever it is, or they're moving from a smaller area, an area that maybe isn't as scenic, or an area that maybe doesn't have as much opportunity. And either way, regardless of why you're moving to the Portland area, you have to have a game plan. And so in this video, we're going to go over some simple steps and things to think about basically between now and moving into your new home. So number one on this list is you have to get a clear picture of your finances. So what does your savings look like right now? What does your income look like right now? What is that going to look like when you relocate? Is there going to be a major shift? Are you going to get a raise? Is it going to allow you to buy more house? Do you want to be more conservative and, you know, kind of live below your means? So really getting a clear picture of your finances, taking a look at what you can afford, but also what you feel comfortable paying as well is really going to be kind of the foundation that drives the rest of the process, because you can create some parameters around, you know, ultimately the financial picture of buying a home, and you can stick with that. Now, I think going into that, the expectation is that you should have a little bit of margin on either side. You know, maybe we can look in a price range that's a little bit less than what you had thought potentially. Maybe you're comparing home prices to where you are, and if you're you know, if you're like in the Bay Area or areas in California, you know, your dollar can go a lot further. If you're coming from the Midwest or areas where home values are lower than average in the Portland area, you know, you might need to look at bumping that up a little bit. So we can move kind of on, you know, below your range, or potentially, you know, might have to go a little bit above your range. But again, you know, sticking with kind of a max number, sticking with a range that feels comfortable with you is going to give you a lot of flexibility and kind of a lot of clarity right out of the gate, you know, once you start looking at homes. Most people ultimately, you know, decide to purchase a home not by the actual sale price or purchase price of a home, but what they're going to pay on a monthly basis. You know, unless you're buying cash or you're, you know, putting over 50% down, 80% down, and just financing a little bit. Maybe that doesn't matter as much, but most people, kind of live within a monthly budget. So if you want to spend $2,000 a month, $3,000, $4,000 on a mortgage plus taxes and insurance, not just looking at the budget for the actual purchase price, but what is that purchase price going to do as far as your monthly payment. The biggest driver there is interest rates, and that's something that obviously is on a lot of people's minds because that's changing a lot right now. Interest rates are going up, so the same home at the same price is going to be more expensive now than it was even 3 months ago, especially 6 months ago. So that's a big consideration. What that's going to do for the housing market is something that we can talk about in another video for sure, and there's always a little bit of speculation there, but again, determining your budget is absolutely crucial. And then step 2, and kind of in that same breath, is getting pre-approved. So this is your golden ticket from your lender. You meet with a lender, you give them all your financial information, W-2s, assets, debt, all of that stuff, and they're going to determine what you can afford. So you may have looked at your income and kind of overall financial picture, and you may have came in way lower than what you could actually get qualified for. Or sometimes people say, I want to buy a house that's $800,000 or $1 million, but they end up talking to their lender and they can only get a pre-approved for a purchase amount of, say, like $700,000, for example. So this is why this is ultimately step 2, is because you can get a feel for what you're comfortable with ultimately, but also then when push comes to shove, it's really going to come down to that conversation with a lender, what you can get pre-approved for. Once you get pre-approved for whatever amount that is, then you're going to have a pre-approval letter, and that's going to give you the ability to actually shop for houses. And that's going to be something that any seller is going to require, that you have a pre-approval letter submitted with your offer. If you're not pre-approved yet and you're submitting an offer, it's probably not going to even get looked at. So it's a really pretty simple process. It might take a little bit of digging up some information to get that over to the lender, but it's pretty straightforward. Sometimes it can be done in 15-20 minutes, all online, or of course you can consult with a lender over the phone and dig into the details a little bit more, and get as many answers as you want, and sometimes that process can take a little bit longer. But so this pre-approval is going to give you the ability to really start seriously looking and shopping for homes, and it's going to confirm your budget. You have an idea of your kind of financial standing and what your budget looks like and kind of what you feel comfortable paying. Then you get confirmed with how much you can afford on the top end through a lender, getting that pre-approval letter. And then we're on to step 3. Now these first 3 steps, really the first 4 steps here can kind of be done simultaneously. A lot of these things happen back to back to back to back, and if you do one before the other, it's not the end of the world necessarily. But if you've made it this far in the process where, the initial step where you've determined that you're moving to Portland, that's checked off the list. And then you're determining what your budget is, you're getting pre-approved. Probably at that point, you've already started doing some research and looking at areas. And so this is where the process gets real, right? You start looking at the Portland metro area, and areas that are going to be near where you work, looking at what commutes look like, but also considering what type of environment you want to live in. Do you want to live in more of an urban setting? Do you want to live in more of a suburban setting? Or do you want to live in more of a rural setting? And luckily here in the Portland metro area, we have all of that, and a really interesting and kind of eclectic mix of all of those things where, you could be in kind of more of a rural area, but near kind of a small town or old town area. So it has kind of a little bit of an urban feel, a little bit higher energy. You could be in the city, within 20 blocks of downtown Portland, and you could have, kind of an urban farm. You can have chickens, and so, kind of everything in between. So there are interesting mixes of some of these different dynamics, but, people are obviously looking at schools. People are obviously looking at how expensive are homes in a particular area. So, more often than not, people are kind of first and foremost shopping based on their budget, right? So if you have some criteria, if you have an idea of the type of area that you want to live in, well, your budget will kind of ultimately dictate or determine what areas meet that criteria, but also are within your budget. So, some of these things do get narrowed down by default regardless, but really starting to do that research, really starting to understand, what area is going to suit you best is the best next step. And so there's a lot of ways you can do this, right? So there's a lot of research online, there's blogs, there's all kinds of information, there's stats about, schools and crime and things like that that are really important to people, different amenities, proximity to restaurants and shopping and malls. And again, like your commute, for example, there's a lot of research and a lot of legwork that you can do on the front end. But there's a lot of great YouTube videos out there. We're trying to make more and more of these videos, doing vlog tours in different neighborhoods to really give you an idea of what these areas look like and what it's like to live there. So I think beyond what you can do from afar, really the best next step, and if you can swing it, the thing we recommend people to do when they're coming from out of state is to visit the area. So if you're going to be moving here in 3 months and 6 months and 12 months, whatever it is, not too soon before you're actually planning on moving, if you can get the time off, or if it's flexible, or if it's within the budget, you got to get here. And we can talk about where to stay. If we've already had some conversations about areas that might be a good fit for you, you can kind of stay, in any one of those areas. You can stay in the city. There's hotels. There are short-term rentals, although the city, has cracked down on that quite a bit. So there are different options for lodging, but either way, you have to get here if you can. Getting here and actually seeing things in person and exploring and driving around these neighborhoods is probably the best thing you can do to get as clear a picture as possible. And one of the great things that we can help with is really creating an itinerary for you, talking about what neighborhoods to drive through, what little districts to go, maybe go get lunch, go get dinner, where you can go shopping, getting out and exploring so you can really get a feel for what these areas are like. So we've talked about budget, you're getting pre-approved, you're getting the financial side of things in order. We're starting to think about areas. What are things that are important to you as far as the neighborhoods and areas you're going to live in? If you haven't done it already, you got to meet with an agent. So what we like to do is hop on a Zoom call if we haven't met yet at this point. And again, this can be done before you really start thinking about areas. In fact, meeting with an agent before you know too much about an area can give you more clarity on kind of how to go about narrowing that down. We can have a conversation before you get pre-approved, for example, but again, these first few steps can kind of happen very quickly or simultaneously. Don't necessarily have to go exactly in order. But if we can hop on a formal Zoom call where we're actually going over each step, we're going over your checklist. What are the things to think about? What are the things to prepare for? What areas are going to work for you? What are your needs, your wants in a particular property? How does your budget allow for all of those things, on your list, again, between area and the type of property you're looking for. And I think it's important to talk about where you can maybe make some exceptions. I mean, home inventory is historically low. So it's not a matter of, going into this, with a certain level of pessimism, assuming that you're not going to get the perfect home. But even in a buyer's market where every other house on a street is for sale, it's usually the case, more often than not, that, the perfect home is just not out there. So we find that people's needs and wants tend to kind of evolve over time as well. Once you start walking into homes, once you start actually seeing homes online, once you start narrowing things down, you say, okay, well, maybe this wasn't quite as important, and actually we want this. So I think overall the point is it's important to go into that with an open mind. And on this initial consultation with us as your agents, we get to talk about that. We get to talk about, okay, what's the perspective and mindset that's ultimately going to give you guys the most success and eliminate as much stress as possible out of the process. So we're going to talk about from here your home search. So we can get you set up on automated search updates. And generally those things tend to be pretty broad. So it's not, when you get an email from us, it's not like we're, curating every home. We put this into a system based on your criteria. And we like to keep that a little bit more broad because things do evolve, as far as those needs and wants. So if we can send you things in your price range, in areas that you like, that check some of the boxes, we can get a better feel for the inventory overall, what's available, and again, where those items might be that ultimately end up not being as important to you potentially, or things that you end up seeing and realizing are really important to you, and we want to kind of bump that toward the top of the list as far as your priorities. We'll also be looking for you through custom manual searches. So, based on the conversation we have, we can look and kind of curate a list of homes or certain listings to send to you directly. So it's going to be attacked kind of from both ends, where we have something going out on an automated basis, but we're keeping an eye out as well for things that really stick out, based on what you've described. And so that'll give you a good sense of kind of what's available now, what homes are listed at, and also over time we can monitor the market. So, hey, I liked that house, that seemed to check some of the boxes, you weren't quite ready to take the next step, we can put a watch on it and see, oh, hey, that home went pending in 3 days, or ultimately, hey, that home sold for $50,000 over list price, over asking price, for example. So we can kind of get a better feel for what to expect over time leading up to when you're actually ready to get started. So that's our 6th step on this list, and that's going to be actually touring homes. Now, this is probably the most important piece, right? Because this video and who we work a lot with and something we see a lot of are people moving in from out of the state. And so, when homes come up that look interesting, you're not going to hop on a plane every time, or drive 5-10 hours, whatever it is, every time, there's a home that, gets listed that you're interested in. So, we're going to book a showing, we're going to schedule a FaceTime with you, or do some video touring of a property, really get a clear overlook and picture of that particular home, and give you, really brutally honest feedback on what the issues are that stand out right out of the gate, what the issues could be based on the age of the home or little things that we see, and then we can talk about boxes that particular property checks. But I think more often than not, because there's so much trust built into this process when you're doing this virtually or remotely, our job, the way we see it, is I think we're more often trying to talk somebody out of a home than saying, hey, this one is perfect. Most commonly, that conversation is probably somewhere in the middle. It's okay, here's what's good about the house, but again, most importantly, here's what's bad about the house. Because even if you were touring in person, we tour properties all the time. We've gone through, several inspection periods with properties, and kind of know issues that are either blatantly obvious or could be an issue, again, based on a number of things. So it makes it even more difficult doing this remotely to really convey that. So we're gonna try to be, again, as forthcoming and, again, brutally honest as possible, just to make sure that you, as a buyer, are protected, and ultimately, you make the best decision for you. All right, so you understand your budget, you're ready with your pre-approval, you've met with us, we've talked about the strategy, the game plan, we've gone over the process from start to finish, we've started a home search, we've even toured some homes. You're ready to go. You're moving in a month, you're moving in 3 months. We want to make offers. When we see the right one, we want to jump on it because homes are moving quickly in this market. So what does that look like? Well, again, we've been able to give you enough feedback and enough content, visually, in particular with these video tours that we can do for you to make an educated decision. And when the time is right, when it's the one you love, we're going to make an offer. So that process is relatively straightforward. We're going to look at the entire contract. We're going to look at the terms that we want to include. We're going to take a look at is that property listed about right? Is it listed below market value, above market value? Are there going to be issues that we think are going to come up with the inspection? Do we want to ask for closing costs? Does the seller need to rent the house back from you for 30 days so they can go out and buy their next home? There are dozens of little things when we make an offer where we can look at how to make an offer as competitive as possible without putting you in a compromised position. That's always the balance, right? So, in a seller's market, sellers generally aren't making that many concessions, although the market is balancing and leveling out a little bit right now. So we are seeing sellers make a little bit more concessions, and concessions would be doing repairs, or offering you a credit toward your closing costs at closing, things like that. You know, if a home has 15 offers, which we're not seeing as much of right now, generally the offer that comes in that says, hey, we want you to cover $5,000 of our closing costs, that's typically not going to be at the top of the list unless it's, you know, a crazy overlist offer price, for example. So again, once we're ready to make offers, we're going to go over the contract and the whole process again to make sure we're on the same page, to make sure we can write a competitive offer to ultimately get you into the home. Offer accepted, great. Now the fun can really begin. So there's several deadlines throughout this typically 30-day period that we have to meet. We have to go do our inspection. You know, we have to negotiate that if anything comes up. There's things that you want to be, you know, coordinating with the lender, like getting homeowners insurance, doing the final application, and getting the final approval for the loan if you're financing. So there's a lot of things along the way. We're going to serve as your guide. We're going to hold your hand throughout that process, step by step, go over dates, what needs to be done, keep you updated, make sure, again, we're on the same page. And really, we just have our sights set on that closing date. So you're moving from out of state. There's a lot of planning that goes into that, obviously, and that's the next step on this list. So, you know, it's a much different dynamic, you know, not being local, not being able to visit the property during the inspection, not being able to go out with a roofer to, you know, get a bid and, you know, understand the, you know, how much life the roof has left on it, for example. So we're going to be here to do that for you. You know, in a more traditional circumstance, somebody can just drive 15-20 minutes, hop over to the house and, you know, kind of be there along the way. But beyond that, obviously, coordinating your move, coordinating different services, you know, for after closing, for example, if you want cleaning, if you want to do painting, you know, if you want to get a plumber in there, whatever it is, we can help you with that. We'll hold your keys. We'll give you as many resources as possible in helping with the logistics of your move, just to make sure everything goes as smoothly as possible. Look, I mean, this is not an easy process. Even if you were here in town, there's a lot of ups and downs emotionally. It can be a roller coaster. This is a big deal, you know, so that's where that trust comes in that I was talking about. You know, we've worked with so many buyers who've come to Oregon, moved to Portland from out of state. And so our process is dialed in for sure. And again, it's all about making sure that our buyers understand everything along the way, that they are ready to go when the time is right, and that once it's time to execute, make an offer, go through that process, and ultimately make your move, we have your back at every step. And we're here to answer questions. We're here to help with that. So to recap our list here, you want to get a clear picture of your financial standing and what you can afford, what you want to pay. You might look at what you can afford and not necessarily want to go to the top of your budget. That might stretch you too thin. And then once you have a clear picture of that, meet with a lender, get pre-approved, have that golden ticket so you're ready to make offers when the time comes, because once you get the ball rolling, things can move pretty quickly, especially if you see a home that you absolutely love and want to move on. That happens all the time, you know, where, you know, somebody wasn't expecting to make offers until maybe 2 or 3 months out, but, you know, it's still month one, something comes up and it's like, hey, this is perfect. You know, this checks all the boxes. Hey, we gotta go. So putting yourself in a position where you are ready to do that on paper is going to be, you know, critical in giving you the most success throughout this process. So from there, it's going to be really dialing in your research. You know, look at videos online, look at blogs, pull up Google Maps, see how far things are from each other, start getting a feel for what type of environment, what type of neighborhood, what type of setting you want to live in, you know, what types of schools. Is crime rate something that you're looking at? Those are all things that we can either talk to you about directly or talk with you about directly, or give you resources where you can get more information on that. And, you know, that next step, if it hasn't happened up to this point, is you got to meet with an agent. We have to really go through these steps and go through this process and talk about your circumstance, your timeline, what areas you might be interested in, what areas you should be focused on based on what you're telling us, what your needs and wants are as far as a specific property, how does that fit within your budget, you know, what's going to be ultimately the best fit for you. And once we've had that conversation, we can start dialing in your home search. You know, we're gonna have a better idea at this point of what areas make the most sense based on, you know, what you want and your budget. Let's start looking at houses in those areas. You know, let's start narrowing things down. You can get automated updates on a regular basis. Anytime anything comes up that we, you know, feel like it looks like a good fit for you, we'll send it over your way. And of course, anytime you see something that looks like a good fit, send it over to us. This is a collaborative effort for sure. Hey, our job is to, you know, execute these home searches, you know, go out, you know, find you the right home for sure. But obviously, the majority of the housing inventory is online and accessible to everybody. So, you know, it's not uncommon, and some buyers like to be more engaged with this than others. But if you're sending us properties on a regular basis, we're gonna take that, we're gonna look into the MLS and look at the notes and look at any information that you may have missed, you know, anything that might be important, give you our feedback on it, say, hey, do you want us to go look at this? That would be the next step. And that's the next step overall in this process is we're ready to start looking at homes. You know, you're seeing stuff you like, hey, let's go open the door, let's FaceTime, or let's do a video tour and give you real-time feedback or immediately, you know, immediate feedback after we go look at it and tell you the good, the bad, the ugly. Again, brutal honesty here in this process. 100%. And you found the home you like, we're making offers, we're going through that process, we're guiding you along the way, and simultaneously kind of planning logistically what your move looks like, and we're gonna help with that in any way that we can. So I really hope that was helpful. Again, we work with a ton of people who are moving from out of state, and we understand it is not an easy process. It can be very stressful, so we're here to help with that any way that we can. If this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. And if you're moving to the Portland area and you want to talk more, you want to start this discussion, let's get in touch. Give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video and schedule a Zoom call with us. We really appreciate you watching. We look forward to speaking with you soon. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.